If episode 2 felt like the moment the world cracked, episode 3 is the moment you realize God did not walk away. The Bible's storyline could have ended after the fall with a simple conclusion: humans failed, game over. But instead, the Bible moves in the opposite direction. God begins a rescue plan. Not a quick fix, not a motivational speech, not a be better message. A rescue plan built on promises. And the Bible has a specific word for these promises: covenants. A covenant is not a casual agreement. It is not a handshake deal. It is a binding commitment that creates a relationship. In modern terms, think of a covenant as a vow, the kind that says, even if circumstances change, I will stay faithful. Covenants are the spine of the Bible. If you understand covenants, the Bible stops feeling like random stories and starts feeling like one connected plot. Here is the simplest way to see it. Humans keep breaking trust. God keeps making and keeping promises. The covenants are God saying, I will not abandon the world, and I will not abandon you. I will repair what sin broke. Now, why does God use covenants instead of simply forcing humans to behave? Because love cannot be forced. God is not building robots. God is rebuilding relationship. That requires commitment, patience, and time. Covenants are how the Bible shows God's commitment working through history. Let us walk through the major covenants and the lessons they teach. The covenant with Noah, God commits to the world. After the flood, God makes a covenant with Noah. The flood story is often reduced to animals on a boat, but it is really a story about violence, judgment, and mercy. The world becomes filled with corruption and violence. God judges, but also preserves life. And then comes a promise. God places the rainbow as a sign that he will not destroy the earth that way again. This covenant matters because it is not only with one family, it is with creation. It is God saying, I am committed to the world even when humans are not. This sets the tone. God's rescue plan is not only about souls floating away, it is about creation itself. God is not giving up on the physical world. Notice what that means. If God is committed to the world, then the world matters. Work matters. Bodies matter. Justice matters. Communities matter. The Bible's rescue story is not an escape from earth. It is a restoration of life under God. The covenant with Abraham, blessing through one family for all nations. The next major covenant is with Abraham. God calls an ordinary man from an ordinary life and makes a promise that sounds almost impossible. Abraham will have descendants as countless as the stars. He will receive land. He will become a great nation. And the key line: through him, all nations will be blessed. This is the moment the Bible narrows its focus and then widens it again. It narrows to one family, but the purpose is global. The goal is not to create a superior tribe. The goal is to create a channel of blessing for the world. And here is where the story becomes deeply human. Abraham is not a flawless saint. He is a mix of faith and fear. He trusts God at times, but he also lies to protect himself. He tries to control outcomes. He makes messy decisions, yet God keeps the promise. This teaches something crucial. God's covenant faithfulness is not dependent on human perfection. If the rescue plan depended on perfect humans, it would fail instantly. The Bible is honest. Humans are unreliable. That is precisely why covenants matter. God binds himself to the plan. A simple way to say it is this: God builds the future on grace, not on human performance. Abraham's story is an early announcement of that principle. The covenant with Israel through Moses. Rescued people become a formed people. Then comes the covenant with Israel through Moses. This is where the Bible becomes a national story. Israel is enslaved in Egypt. God rescues them through the Exodus. And then after rescue comes covenant. This sequence is extremely important. Rescue comes first, relationship comes first, then comes instruction. This means the law is not the entrance ticket to God's love. The law is the shape of life for people already rescued. At Sinai, God is essentially saying, I brought you out. Now live as my people. The covenant includes blessings for faithfulness and consequences for rebellion, not because God is petty, but because life has moral shape. If you build society on injustice, it collapses. If you build life on idolatry, it deforms you. The covenant names reality. This covenant also introduces a theme that runs through the entire Bible. God wants a people, not just isolated believers. The Bible is not mainly about individual spirituality. It is about forming a community that shows the world what God is like. Israel is meant to be a light, a model, a living demonstration of justice, mercy, and worship. That is why the covenant includes social laws, economic laws, care for outsiders, and patterns of rest. The covenant is not just private morality, it is public life. The covenant with David, the promise of a king and a future Messiah. Then comes the covenant with David. Israel asks for a king, and through a messy journey, David becomes king. God makes a promise that David's line will have a lasting throne. This covenant becomes the fuel for Messiah hope. Now, here is what makes this covenant dramatic. David is deeply flawed. He does great things and terrible things. He is both a worshiper and an abuser of power. Yet God's promise remains. The Bible does not hide David's sin because it is trying to protect you from idolizing human leaders. It is teaching you that even the best leader cannot fully fix the human condition. So why promise a king at all? Because humans need leadership, but they need the right kind of leadership. The David covenant creates expectation for a future king who will not be corrupted, who will rule with justice, who will heal what is broken. This is where prophecies about a coming Messiah become intense. The new covenant, the promise of inner transformation. Now we arrive at the most important covenant promise, even before Jesus appears. The prophets speak of a new covenant. This is where the Bible becomes emotionally powerful because God is essentially saying, I know your problem is not only external, your problem is your heart. And God promises a solution. Jeremiah speaks of a covenant where God's law will be written on hearts, not just on stone tablets. Ezekiel speaks of a new heart and a new spirit, of God removing the heart of stone and giving a heart of flesh. In plain language, God is saying, I will not only give you instructions, I will change you from the inside. This is huge. It means the Bible is not aiming for behavior modification. It is aiming for transformation. That is why Christianity does not center on try harder. It centers on grace, faith, and new life. So what is the covenant storyline teaching you? First, God's rescue plan is relational. God is not only fixing behavior, God is restoring trust. Second, God works through history and people, not through instant magic that bypasses human life. God forms a story. Third, God's promises stand even when humans fail. That is grace. It is not soft. It is strong. It is God's stubborn commitment to redemption. Fourth, covenants point forward. They build anticipation. They are like chapters leading to a climax. The climax is Jesus, where the new covenant is launched. Now here is the awe-inspiring takeaway for episode 3. The Bible is not humans climbing up to God. It is God coming down into human history, binding himself with promises, refusing to abandon the broken world, and building a path back to life. If you feel your life is unstable because people break promises, episode 3 is a declaration that God does not. Humans are inconsistent. God is faithful. That is the engine of the Bible's hope.